He cocked his gun and started. He shot one bullet in the hair, and the next bullet, he shot it in my leg. I actually saw him turning back.
Eric Mutasiga breathed his last this week on Tuesday, bringing to 7 the number of people who have died at the hands of security personnel during enforcement of the COVID-19 measures in the last 3 months. A husband, father of 3 and head teacher of Mary Times Primary School in Mukono district, Mutasiga was shot mid-last month at Wantoni after he intervened in the arrest of his employee, whom police had roughed up for reportedly being outside past the curfew time of 7 p.m. It's amongst the most egregious forms of human rights abuses registered during the lockdown. In their defense, police argued that the deceased attempted to grab the keys of the motorcycle on which their officers were traveling on, and that the officers in question had been brought to book. However, both the deceased's widow and several witness accounts dispute police's version of the events.
He was inside having supper when he was called out that his employee had been arrested. He tried talking to the police officers nicely, including asking them if he could give them money, but they did not listen to him.
Omusirikale nagamba kale yali ayina engeri gy'ayogeramu ng'alinga ayina by'akozeseza ku ssaawa eyo.
The policeman appeared like he was high on a substance. He was swearing around that he would kill someone when he shot 5 bullets in the air, one of which hit Eric.
Omusirikale nagamba genda kasa tutuuke eri statement y'ogenda okola.
Before we reached the police, they told me to say in the statement that the deceased tried to grab the motorcycle keys. I was told that if I did not comply, then I would not be released. The officers were looking for a defense to justify their despicable action of shooting an innocent man.
During their weekly press briefings at the media center, both police and the army have condemned in the strongest terms the high-handedness of errant officers.
Wherever you are, we're supposed to work together, and that's the intention of this cooperation. So we'd like to encourage that continue to monitor our officers in the field so that we have accountability for their actions while they are there. Because the uniforms we wear, the work we do, is authorized by the government of Uganda, which is your government.
Other abuses include police and LDU personnel cruelly beating up people for, among others, walking past curfew hours. Many were rounded up, especially during night operations at Kitalia Maximum Prison for men and Kigo Prison for the women. According to Jacob Mumbia, a lawyer, the violations were worsened by the wide knowledge gap about human rights awareness on both the side of the public and security personnel.
Is the issue of creating awareness about the law for people to understand it. Because it may become difficult for you to impose a law that the people upon which you're enforcing it do not understand, and even the enforcers do not understand. You see that? So you might have security agencies that do not understand the law that they're enforcing. They will do what their bosses have told them to do.
It's not clear yet whether there will be an audit or wide-ranging inquiry into the matter when coronavirus is eventually gone. But for anyone who was caught in the web, the experience will linger forever. As the embers of the coronavirus spread rapidly around the world and anxious governments responded swiftly to contain the pandemic, the UN High Commission for Human Rights in Geneva on April 20th warned that some of the abuses appeared to transgress key basic freedoms. Some governments around the world imposed state of emergencies, while others initiated partial or total lockdowns, which measures violated, among others, freedoms of movement and the right to religion, assembly, and association.
For instance, if the father has a family, he has children to look after. You see that? Maybe some of the children are sick, but the children have to eat. They have to survive. He has to put a roof over their heads. You see that? Now, if you arrest that father or that mother, the violations are extending beyond the father. So the father is not the only victim. The children will also suffer. And that is why I was trying to explain that the thing about human rights is that most of them seem to be intertwined. When you violate one, you might have violated 2 or 3 of them.
Besides the shootings and cruel manhandling, prisons are filled to the brim. When President Museveni first announced the lockdown in April and listed the category of essential services which would remain running, lawyers and judges were not among, and yet security enforced the measures on a daily basis. Aaron Besige, the National Coordinator of Justice Centers, which was established by the judiciary to provide free legal services, told NTV that this created a vacuum.
A right to fair hearing. Fair hearing is one of the cardinal principles of natural justice, and is one of those rights that are non-derogable. You cannot dispense it with. Now, that right to fair hearing involves also a right to legal representation, access to a lawyer. Because without accessibility to a lawyer, many of those people actually did not even have an option.
In other cases, Besige said security personnel ought to have exercised some discretion, which was not the case.
Engage the DPP, and DPP withdraw charges because some of the charges did not make actual sense. Some of them there was no evidence. Some of it was just clogging the system for what? For free. We also engaged the judiciary, and the judiciary has been very, 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 very grateful, especially the magistrates, to make sure that at least many of the people who have been released, some of them were convicted to the period they had spent on remand.
In his last televised address on COVID on June 1st, President Museveni weighed in on the matter to unclog the system.
Now, there are 4,000 people who were arrested at the beginning of this lockdown because they didn't follow the regulations. I have discussed with the Attorney General, and the other day I also mentioned it to the DPP. I would like those people to review those people, and if they find nothing serious, to release them.
The Director of Public Prosecutions, Jenna Bodo, however, said the presidential pronouncement did not mean immediate release of those who are behind bars.
It is being misconstrued, like the president gave directives that get all the people who were got under the COVID cases. We call them now the COVID cases. That cases that arose from the presidential directives, get them all out of the system. That's not how it works, and I don't think that's what the president meant. Because between me and you, this crisis, this pandemic, took everyone by surprise. So we were bound to make a few mistakes here and there, and now we are going back and standing back and saying, okay, how can we salvage the situation?
Abodo admitted that the crisis put everyone, especially government, in a difficult situation.
We asked Commissioner of Prisons, give us the list of all those cases in Kitalia first, and Chigo, because Chigo was housing the women. Give us a list of all those, and we first look through them, because we also didn't want just to get them and then release people. And I want you to understand that us in the justice sector, we are actually, our response should be quick, but should be reasonable, should be proportionate, and we should balance public health, public safety, and also safety of our frontline staff.
But as the country expects justice for COVID cases to be administered fast, the DPP's office is already overwhelmed. A thin workforce of 334 prosecutors against an approved structure of 833 covering 150 districts.
We are saying people who have got curfew, people who have got maybe selling fruits after 5, after 7 p.m., we can release those ones and they go home and caution them. But people who assaulted police officers when they were carrying out this, those ones should really go in the system and go through the court system. People who forged stickers, those movement stickers, those ones should go through the system. Those were cases of domestic violence. Those for us are high priority cases. We have prioritized those ones, high priority. The rest are low priority. We also discussed on the 28th of May, we discussed of how do we handle people who are already, because now we are forgetting people who were there before COVID.
However, every government agency has been overwhelmed. For instance, inmates released from Kitalia prison along Mitiana Road who are not picked by relatives have to find their own means to their respective destinations.
Nibatugamba nti mwajemera ekiragiro kya president okutambula naye ekibonerezo kya.
In court, we were told that we had disobeyed the president's orders, which carries a maximum penalty of 2 years in prison. But if we pleaded guilty, it will be reduced to 6 months. So we accepted because we didn't have any other option. So we were all sentenced, some to 1 year, others to 6 months, others to 3 months, and others remained on remand.
His narration of the overcrowded prison and squalor behind the iron curtain is frightening.
In each prison ward, we lived more than 300 inmates, but the conditions in there were unspeakable.
According to justice centers, the situation inside the prison corridors borders on a crisis. Goreti Ayebare, who manages Justice Center's office at Mengo, which oversees, amongst others, Buganda Road and Nabweru courts, said many of those who are crowding prisons are petty offenders.
One video conferencing at Buganda Road, if you want to be heard, you have to schedule. Every magistrate, every jurisdiction is trying to get a date at Buganda Road. Prison cannot let us have mini sessions in prison. There are trial magistrates who are willing to go and sit at prison, but the prison is saying because of COVID-19, we can't give you access. As the defense lawyers, we are willing to go to court. State is willing, to go to prison. State is willing to go to prison. The court is willing to sit in prison and have mini sessions, even maintaining those social distancing guidelines for as long as that we see justice is maintained. But then the prison is saying, no, we don't have any powers from above to let you get into prisons.
Ayebare said the tale of many inmates is alarming.
So from the male section, people gave us their real stories. Someone will tell you that my wife was giving birth. As my wife was giving birth, I was arrested because I had to go to the facility to find my wife. Imagine you have not gone where your wife is and you have been arrested. You don't know whether your wife actually gave birth or she passed on, or you don't know. You're just held up back there. Another one will tell you that I was working and I actually work stops at 6. My boss tells me we stop at 6, but the distance that I'm going to be moving from maybe Kawempe to this, it will require me to travel. I was just left with maybe an hour. Just a few minutes to get to my door. And I was arrested. Like, the people who are arresting people were just so inhuman.
The DPP says they have agreed with the leadership of police and courts on a holistic management of the cases going forward.
We said at police, they can weigh really and say this particular case, should it come to the court system, or they can handle it at police and just caution the people and the people go, because they have those powers. And when they come to the DPP's office, some still fall off because we shall not sanction some of them. If we see that they are low priority and they're really not, people are not violent. Because now the idea should be that people who are not violent, people who have not committed violent crimes, shouldn't really be in the system.
There have been several cases of breadwinners who were arrested and their families left to fend for themselves, such as 41-year-old Lilian Achiro, who was in prison for 2 months.
I was arrested at around 6 a.m. after leaving Nakasero Market, where we had gone to buy fruits. Then I went to Ven around Mukwana Arcade. The soldiers came and ordered us to enter into the lorry without telling us where they were taking us. We were then transported to the CPS. We stayed at the compound and it rained on us as we waited to be arraigned in court. Then I was sentenced to 3 months in prison.
Achiro revealed the mental anguish she went through in prison as her impassioned pleas fell on deaf ears.
Life became very difficult. I used to cry a lot. I had left my children without money and the landlord was demanding for rent. At the prison, we were sent to work in the farms and the beating was too much.
There are also cases of families who don't know the whereabouts of their loved ones.
Because up to now, some people haven't reached their homes. We call their relatives, they say, we haven't seen him. Unfortunately, some don't have contacts. Some of those released people, they don't have contacts. So we are not sure whether the person reached. The relatives are saying they haven't heard from him.
Justice Abodo, however, said they are working around the clock to streamline the process of releasing all petty offenders.
We have about 1,500 prisoners who want to plea bargain. So we are doing that. So we shall decongest also through that. Then we have people who want to apply for bail in the prisons. How do we go about that? We have people in the prisons who are terminally ill. And with this COVID, and they're going to be like the ones who will fall off, they're going to be in the front line. So we are thinking, how do we get out those? In the prisons, we have juveniles.
In a recently published paper on the legal implication of the lockdown, Makerere University Law Don Businje Kabumba argued that the current measures instituted thus far by government have been more rational and effective than that of many other states around the world, notwithstanding the fact that they are of doubtful legality if subjected to the strict test under Article 43(2) of the Constitution. With the coronavirus cases rising and government torn between keeping the measures in place or lifting them, the country is yet to see the worst, while those already affected have to learn to cope.